All right, welcome back to Tara's Voice. I'm really excited because my guest today comes from across the pond on the other side of the world. And so we're going to have a fun conversation. And I actually think Amy, we initially connected through a summit, I want to say. We'll have to circle back to that and see if we can figure out how our initial connection was.
I remember it was a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a few years. And I think we've done a few projects together.
Yeah.
But we've never had usually we're talking about projects, summits, work. So this will be fun to have a more unscripted conversation.
Yeah.
But before we get started, let me introduce you to Amy. Amy Walker is the founder of the Dietista nutrition program. And she also now has the Amy Ruth Walker Corporate Freedom Consultancy. And so she works with clients who really want to create a business and income that they love so that they can leave a job they don't. And she has over 17 years of experience helping people who are in a health crisis so that they can become the boss of their body. And really what happened was Amy saw that many of her clients, it was their poor health that was affected by their stressful careers. And this was something that she kind of knew personally from her extensive background in corporate America, in corporate
UK.
in the UK. Amy is a global speaker. She is a writer for the Wellness Universe. She's been a guest on OM Times Radio, Seattle, and Coach on Fire Radio in New York, and has also worked with entrepreneurs and influencers to create, and this is super cool, to create charities that support people, animals, and the planet. So she also has the heart of wanting to give back, not just to her clients, but to lots of things all over the planet. So I'm excited about that. And I have no idea what your question is going to be. So we will pull up our wheel of irrelevant questions and see what we get.
Okay.
All right. So I'm pulling up the wheel. For those of you listening, we're going to go ahead and spin and let's see what pops up. And again, some of these questions have been contributed by other people. So we'll see if it's maybe your question.
Okay.
And the question is, okay, this is from Julie Hood. Worst mom moment. But now I'm not sure. I don't actually know this. Are you a mom?
No.
This will be fun. We're going to keep this question on the wheel because maybe we'll get another guest, usually remove it, who might be a mom. But here's how we're going to shift this then. Just worst parent moment. Like,
okay, yeah.
What's the worst moment that you think back of as a kid with a parent? And you're like, my mom, and we'll give mom or dad because not everybody, is raised by both parents, but where you're just like, what were they thinking and how that affected me? And I'll preface, I've been having a lot of these moments recently of realizing things that were said to me when I was younger, basically like put my light out. And so I've been doing a lot of like meditation on like refinding like who I was when I like came out of the womb before my parents put all their crap on me. So we're going to say, what was your worst mom or dad moment?
Well, that's cool. But do you know what? My parents are crazy, so I've just got so many to choose from. And I don't know which one to share.
And I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing.
Yeah, I know.
That like legit my parents are like actually crazy, or is it like, oh my god, like my daughter would be like, oh, my mom's crazy?
Yeah, no, my dad unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but did have a really he was of age, but I inherited his like dark sense of humor. So one of the things that he used to do when my friends used to come over, when I was in my 20s and I still lived at home in my early 20s, he used to call my best friend Sarah in. She's still my good friend or best friend to this very day. And he'd call her into the living room when she came through the front door, and he'd be like, Sarah, take a look at this. And he'd poke his toe out of his sock, right? Because he always had like holes in his sock, and he'd poke his toe out of his sock and he'd wiggle it. And he'd say to her, look at that. Is that too much man for you to handle or what? And she's just like, you know what, Jeff? She goes, I don't know how I'm controlling myself. And he said, he goes, I get what you're saying. He goes, but if you want to know what a real man looks like, I'll be in the bath in 10 minutes. So I'm just like, oh my God. So my dad was super embarrassing. Super
So not
embarrassing.
only is that super embarrassing, but I'm also thinking like, thank God it was just a toe. I mean, into business, like that was she when you were like, he used to pop out his, I was like, where is this going?
Oh, he was
But
terrible.
also like,
Hilarious.
I mean, I guess, and I don't know how this actually, I don't know. This will be interesting. I don't know how the Me Too movement transpired over in the UK versus what was going on here in America. But I feel like that just violated so many like women.
Oh
Like,
gosh, yeah. I mean, if that was to happen now, like there would be eyebrows raised all over the place. But like I'm a Gen X, and things were different back then. You could say kind of whatever you want, and I think as well, like my friend knows he meant no harm about it. You know, he was just trying to embarrass
be
her
funny.
essentially. Yeah, and be funny. And she just used to stand there and shake her head at him. You know,
I
but they
feel
had.
like so. If I was your friend, literally one day when he did that, I'd be prepared. And as soon as his toe popped out, I'd be like, I bought you socks.
Yeah,
I bought you
exactly.
God holy socks.
Exactly. But yeah, he had a good relationship, I have to say. He had a really good relationship with like my friends. And back in the days before mobile phones, when your friends had to call your house to speak to you, I always knew when it was one of my friends because my dad would just be talking to them for ages. How you doing? You know, and all that kind of stuff. And I'd be standing there next to him to say, "Can I have my friend now, please?" You know. But he used to, get on really well with my friends. He had a really good sense of humour. So yeah,
Oh my gosh.
always
Now,
line room.
were your parents married? Did they stay married or did they get divorced?
Yeah, no, they stayed married. Yep, so they stayed married. My mum, they both moved to Spain when I was in my late 20s. My mum's
Oh,
still
wow.
there now. Yeah,
Why did they? And because you grew up where? You grew up
just outside of London in
in
the
Scotland.
UK. Yeah,
So what made you leave and go to Spain?
probably the weather here.
Oh,
All the Brits just go absolutely nuts. We've had a terrible summer this year, and it's it's into September now. Later on in the year now, and coming into autumn, and yeah, it's just the weather is just absolutely awful, and we don't even feel like we've had a summer. So quite a lot of Brits, especially when they get older, of my parents' generation, they would buy a house in Spain and they would go and live there. So it was quite a common thing to do. I think it's like the UK, older people from the UK moving to Spain is what I hear, like a little bit like Florida. People always kind of like
that's
go to
just what I
Florida.
was thinking. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it's just exactly what I was thinking because I'm from New Jersey. So I live in like the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Everybody works there, works in New York, makes their money. And then as soon as they can retire or their kids go up to college, they hightail it out and they go to
yeah,
Florida. Where
yeah,
now the
yeah.
big thing is North Carolina. But yeah, they all, or Arizona. Like some people go to Arizona because it's warm. But that's exactly what I was thinking. And here was interesting. I watched this, I think it was TikTok. And it was a guy from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how Europeans always like complain that Americans are not well traveled. Like, so I will tell you, I don't even have a valid passport anymore. Like, I let my passport expire. And then this is crazy. I went to renew it during COVID and I sent in a picture. I had a passport license and I sent my picture in. They sent it back to me and they said, this picture is more than 6 months old. We won't use it. But it was in the middle of COVID, so I couldn't go get like another photo. So they just took my $300. It was non-refundable. It was just so I gave them $300 and I have no passport still. So I keep saying to my daughter, I have to get our passport. I'm going to take my earrings out. I think they are hitting my earbuds. So I keep saying to my daughter, I have to get his passports. So I don't even have passports. So I would be the American that this guy was complaining about, that Americans have, no culture. They're not traveled. They haven't seen anything. And so this UK guy had an interesting take on it, which I never thought of it this way. He said, it's not that Americans aren't well traveled. It's that Europeans don't realize how big America is. And so where he was talking about wherever he was living, he could be in like 3 or 4 different countries within a matter of 4 or 5 hours. And like when I lived in Colorado, you could drive 4 5 hours and still be in the same state, right? And so he was equating that you have to think, Europeans need to think of America as 50 countries. And if you think about it as 50 countries, then Americans are very well traveled because most people have been to multiple states. And I just thought, that's such an interesting concept because, it's also the idea that most Americans only speak one language, where like my aunt lives in Italy and speaks 7 languages. but she's close to all these other countries where she, you know what I mean? Where there's really not,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Spanish, but there's not really a need to speak, multiple languages in the United States. So
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
the
know.
same in the UK. We're like the same in the UK. We don't speak any other languages. I'm awful, and I'm really like,
Really?
yeah, no, I'm terrible, absolutely terrible at learning languages. You
Do
asked
most
any of my teachers when I was at school. Pardon?
do most people in the UK though speak another language outside of just
I think we've got quite a culturally diverse kind of country. So we've got a lot of people that are multicultural, but it's very, very typical for, I would say the vast majority of my friends, perhaps, don't speak unless they've got like Italian, Spanish, French or something in their family. They don't really speak that kind of, you don't really speak language.
I
We're
didn't know
awful.
that.
That's why one of the reasons the rest of Europe hates us. It's just like, we're just so like,
language.
but going back to what you were saying as well about like, like being traveled and stuff like that, myself and my partner, because we're big outdoorsies, and we're like America have got it. I think you've got it so lucky because you have got literally every single landscape you could possibly think of. Okay, you've got gorgeous beaches, you've got desert, you've got rainforests, you've got mountains, all of these kind of like national parks and big waterfalls and so many gorgeous places that you can immerse yourself in, the kind of thing that I travel to go and see. If I actually think that if I was born in America, I'd probably not leave. Because there's so much to see. I'd just be probably lost in a national park somewhere hiding from bears, but yeah, you've got like,
do we have rainforests? I mean, if you're a listener here in the United States, we have rainforests. I don't. What would
not
that?
actually in the States, I don't think.
Yeah,
But
I'm
like,
like, I don't know that we have anything that would constitute.
Costa
Yeah.
Rica, yeah.
So okay, so South America, we can get some
Yeah, like
rainforests.
South
But you're
American
right, we
stuff.
do have diverse. I find it very interesting. So I grew up in New Jersey, and had never really traveled much. I had gone like the traditional New Jersey, when you live in New Jersey, the traditional places like Connecticut, Pennsylvania, maybe a New Hampshire here or there, Virginia, Florida, maybe once. But basically from Maine to Florida, if you just drive straight, there's not going to be a significant difference in landscape. I mean, really, until you get to the end of Florida and you see some palm trees, it's pretty much the same type of vegetation, at least in my mind. If listeners, you could contradict that. I remember the first time being in my early 20s and going out to Colorado, and just my mind was blown. I remember sitting at the top of Mount Evans, which is the highest road you can drive up in North America. It's a 14er. And I was sitting at the top of it and I'm looking out feeling like this can't be real. And it made me think about, in school where you learned about the explorers and they went west and how they would write these crazy letters back home. And people thought they were having like LSD trips because they were talking about the landscape and the colors and I'm like, this is what they meant. Because growing up, like talking about a mountain. I mean, I grew up in an area where they talk about mountains and now I'm like, you mean those little hills? Like those weren't mountains. Just the open sky, the landscape. It's so beautiful as you get like west of the Mississippi. It's so different looking.
Yeah,
I was just having a conversation with Jack's daughter and her friend about this. I was like, I hope if you guys, even if you want to stay in New Jersey and live here or live in the tri-state area, that you go and explore and realize like there's such a different world. And at least where I live in New Jersey, most people, they're from here, they live here, their 27-second cousins live here, they never leave here. And it's such a tiny slice of life of how people live. But I have not traveled much to the UK. I've been to London a couple of times. I've been to Belgium once and France once, and that's about the extent of my international travel. So I would be the person that the Europeans are like, what's wrong with these Americans? Because I really haven't.
It is like Colorado is beautiful though. I've been fortunate to spend quite a lot of time there because I've got family that live in Denver and I've got friends that, they're now in Grand Junction, but they used to live in a place called Ridgeway, which is near Ouray and Telluride, that kind of way.
Oh.
So I've spent quite a lot of time near the San Juan Mountains and I actually did the Sneffels half marathon. And that was it. Honestly, it was just amazing, absolutely amazing. Wow. It's my most favorite place in the world is Colorado. My most favorite. I go there and I'm just so happy. I'm like,
it is beautiful. I think that's probably the problem, though, is that everybody felt like it was their favorite place, and they had so many people moving in that now it's just a like hot mess with housing and homelessness, and because everybody wants to live there. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy. So if you're listening, I would love to know, what is the most beautiful place that you've been to? So if you're an American, like you can say like, this is my most beautiful place I've been to in America. What do you think is like the best place to live? And if you're European, I think it's also interesting what the stereotypes that we have of other people, other countries. I remember my aunt came to visit, and I was like, so what do you think of Americans, being Italian, growing up in Milan and everything. And she was so funny because she was like, well, I guess she didn't want to be offensive.
Right.
I'm like, no, I really, really want to know. And she's like, I don't know. We picture you guys as all kind of like very big, very overweight, very loud, in kind of Hawaiian print like summer shirts. I don't know what that was like, almost like a vacation. Like, I guess like if you picture people on vacation, like these big print Hawaiian shirts, and very loud. That was what she was like. Americans are just very loud. And I've seen that a little bit on like, threads and well, X, Twitter, whatever it used to be, about people talking about that Americans are very loud people, and that, we talk to strangers and we say hi to strangers. And I'm like, really? The rest, isn't everybody like that?
Yeah, being it's definitely more friendly than us Brits. 110% more friendly than us Brits. But I used to live in Texas for a while, because I was actually married to a Texan. And there's definitely like I was trying to explain to my sister-in-law, because she was like, what are the differences that you find between the UK and the States, like in being like in your person, that kind of thing. And I said, it's really weird. I said, it's really similar but also very different. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's really similar and really different. And she was saying to me, can you give me an example? And I was like, I don't think I can. It's just like there's just those culturally things. Like, here's one. So like, I mean, Texas is southern, so they're all very hospitality, and they'll have everybody round for food, and they'll invite you over, and they'll say, hey, like, come over and have dinner, like, come over anytime. And the thing is like, they will mean it, right? But if we say it in the UK, you don't come. So it's just like, it's that kind of thing. Oh no, come round anytime. We're like, oh God, please don't. Like, dang, this is like, we close our doors and we're just like introverted. So there is like, there's those kind of things that are like very kind of.
Okay, so good note. If you're in the UK and someone says, come over, we'd love to have you over, come over anytime, they're lying.
Yeah, especially if they've had loads of beers when you've met them, because they really need it then. But then they'll wake up in the morning with a hangover and go, oh my God, I've got to have guests today. No, a lot of people do mean it. Like, a lot of people do mean it. That's a little bit unfair, but it's just the one thing that when I was actually in Colorado, in Ridgeway, I was with my friends Pat and Dave, and they're both from Colorado. And we were driving around the mountains, and I think it's called Red Rock Path or something. And there was this, I always remember it because I used to hate driving that bit. Because it was, I was in the passenger seat, because there was a drop, like a big mountain drop. And Dave sort of said, he goes, oh, that's a strange number plate. And I remember just kind of, because I was in the back, I remember just looking like out the windscreen through like the passenger and driver like seats. And I went, oh my God, they're my people. And they were called Karen and, oh God, I can't remember their guy's name. But anyway, they ended up staying at Pat and Dave's and that night, because they were traveling on their bike, and their bike was a UK bike, and they were traveling. And I remember Pat and Dave saying, if you need to wash your clothes or anything like that, just go ahead and use the washing machine. And I could see them sat there awkwardly, because I know they were like, do they mean it, or are we? Because we were brought up to be seen and not heard, back in the day. That's a very British way. And I had to look at them and say, oh, it's Karen and Ray, their name was. And I had to look at them and say, I know exactly what you're thinking. You're thinking that perhaps you shouldn't, but trust me, it's completely okay. I'll come down and show you. And they were like, oh, okay then. Because the Brit had said, no, they mean it. It's fine. It's not like home, it's fine, So it's kind of, so.
That's so interesting. That
Yeah,
would be fascinating, just the like cultural differences that are small things that people don't realize. And I have seen that even just within the United States. So, I have my first business, it was in direct sales. And so I was in that in New Jersey. And, in New Jersey, when you give your business card to somebody and you say, hey, I'd love to get together with you, offer you this product, this service. If they are not interested, they're just going to tell you straight out. They're gonna be like, no, I don't want your business card. No, I'm not interested. They have no problem in saying no. So there's a lot of rejection. You
yeah.
deal with a lot of rejection, right? I move out to Colorado and I'm trying to build my business out there. And I would offer my business card to somebody and be like, hey, I'd love to get together with you, share this product, share this service. And people be like, oh, that's great. Yeah, sure. Here's my number, whatever. And then you would call them and they'd be like, oh, I'm just really busy. Can you call me back? And then you would call them back and they'd be like, oh, I'm just on the way out the door. Can you call me back?
Oh,
And then you
maybe
would
it's
call
the
back
same
and
then.
they'd be like, oh, I have to check with my husband. And it took me a little bit to realize it was that these people had zero intention. They were not interested at all. They just didn't. It was so interesting because I had people who lived out there. I was like, explain this to me. I don't understand. And what I was told was that they felt like it was ruder to say to me up front, hey, I'm
Yeah.
not interested. Don't give me your business card.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been rude. But
Yeah.
taking my business card, leading me on, letting me think that they were interested, and then just blowing me off every time I called them was not rude. And they said, well, they just don't expect that you're going to call back.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
was like, but I'm from New Jersey. We follow through. So I legit, this is what I used to say. I'd say, I'm going to give you my business card now. If you change your mind, it's okay. Just let me know because I will continue to follow up with you if I think you're interested. And I was like, I had to literally preface that every time I met somebody. It was bizarre. So to me, it was like I would call it the passive nice. Like you're not really interested. You just are too passive to say, I'm not interested. Where in New Jersey, we would just be like, no, and not feel bad about it. Just no, I'm not interested. So it was fascinating. So when we talk about the different culture from the UK to the United States, I think this goes back to the idea that the United States is so big. It's like these different countries.
It is.
It's a different culture in the East Coast and the West Coast. And I found that in a lot of things. I had a difficult time. And of course, this was, 20 years ago, but I had a difficult time moving from New Jersey to Colorado because the culture was so different. And that may be different now, as it's become, as it's kind of exploded and more people have moved in. But I am sure, I am sure that is probably true with people who've moved to extreme locations. Like I have a friend who moved to South Carolina and has had a very difficult time with the culture down there. I've heard of people who've gone to colleges in the South. They came from the North and they were like, yeah, get me out of there. And probably vice versa. I would think there's probably people from the South who come up to the Northeast and are like, these people are rude and nasty and get me out,
Yeah,
So
I think it's the same in the UK, but it's the other way around. So it's like the north of England, they're all really, really friendly, and us Southerners are too busy and rude. So that's kind of it's the same kind of thing. It's just switched. Whereas like the northern like New York and stuff is a very busy cosmopolitan place, isn't it? And the South is quite slow, and in most places quite slow and like more laid back, I would say.
interesting. So that's curious to me. Then I wonder why the people in the South are more standoffish and rude.
What in UK?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're not really. I think it's just it's city. We've got London in the UK, so it's kind of the Northerners will say we're standoffish and rude, but because it's London, it's busy. It's a bit like New York. Everyone's just here, there, and everywhere. Head on their phones, newspaper, on the tube and stuff like that. People are just rat racing it. So it's not like they don't necessarily have the time or the want to stop on the street where there's hundreds of other people just doing this and stop and have a chat because like it's raining. We just want to get to work, Yeah. So yeah, and I think like, in the north of the UK, people are a little bit more traditional, a little bit more family led. And this is just such a like, I'm making these like comments about like the UK. This is like, no one take anything as gospel. Please just like make up your own mind. This is.
I know. There's people are going to be like little trolls. I got an opinion.
It's like
these are generalizations. These are stereotypes.
Yes, exactly. It's just like, these are the things that we are stereotypically known as. In England, the Northerners will say I can't actually say what they'll say. Do you know what I mean? And like we would say, perhaps harmful things about like the Northerners as well. But it's all tongue in cheek, and it's all in jest. It's just a slightly different way of life. And to the untrained eye, you probably wouldn't notice, but when you actually live in that country, you do. You pick up on it.
Well, and it's also like, I remember I went to college in upstate New York, and people would say, "Where are you from?" And I would say, "I grew up outside of the city." And they would say, "What city?" And I would look at them and I'd be like, "The city?" And they're like, "No, which city? Like Boston?" I was like, "No, the city, New York." What? Like, I was shocked that there were other cities that were referred to as a city. Boston's not a city, it's Boston. The city, the only city, clearly was New York. So that was even just a cultural shock of being like, oh, they call those cities. When I moved to Denver, and again, this was 20 years ago, people would talk about Denver was the city, and I could never say that. I was like, downtown. It was the downtown, because I'm like, that is really not a city. I mean, you can park your car on the street anywhere. So it does become, you're like, what, you think. So that was very interesting, even in upstate New York. And that was maybe 4 hours from where I grew up, these different ideas. I also think that people love to be offended. So I'm sure something that we just said offended somebody, but You're welcome, because people love to be offended. I think it's almost like, I don't know if it's true in the UK. I think Americans thrive on being offended because, I'm not sure where that comes from or if that's a new thing, but I love that. If you love to be offended, I am sure we just said something to make your day, and you can rant about how offended we are.
It's going back, like talking about like, like what my dad said to my friend. I mean, if like a parent was to say that now, it'd be like, my God, phone the police, right? But like freaking 25 years ago or whenever it was, when I was 22. Yeah, 25 years ago when I was 22, stuff was just a little bit different. People were a little bit more hardy. They weren't offended by so much. We drank from the hose. We are the last of the feral generation. We don't get offended.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I want to take that phrase. Somebody write that down. We are the last of the feral generation.
Yeah, we are. We're the last feral children. And it's just like, like we went out, didn't we? And like just played it out, right? And like your parents would be like, somebody would be like, "Where's your kid?" And your parents would be like, "Oh, outside somewhere." Whereas like now people are, more like, kids are more kind of like homebound. But we just went out and we ran riot. We didn't really get, it takes quite a lot to offend me. So,
yeah.
so I just don't think it's an our generation kind of thing.
I think it's also the idea that like once we started, like everybody had to get a trophy and everybody had to feel good and nobody could, lose. And there's good about that, but they've also done some interesting research on that. When you do that, it actually lowers, it was designed to like raise children's self-esteem. It actually lowers kids' self-esteem because they know they didn't really deserve it. And there's also some interesting research being done about people, like kids, not going into the sciences and into areas that we actually really need, areas that are like, you don't really think of science as creative. You think of music and art and stuff like that, but science is actually really creative because you're exploring, inventing new things, trying to find new ways that things work, trying to explain how things work. And you need to have a creative mind to think outside of the box. I'm not a science person, but that's what I guess this research was talking about. And they were saying that less and less kids are going into this creative field of exploration in science. And they equate it to that as parents, we have structured everything that children do. So even when they have free time, it is structured by parents. They put them in Little League and the parents structure it. They put them in a gymnastics class and a parent or an adult is structuring it. Everything is structured. Kids come home from school and they have all their structured activities, even down to the fact, and and I will say this is true, having had a kid, we organize a play date. We are structuring the play date for our kids to, what are we going to do during the play date? And so because they don't have this free exploration of just, I'm not giving you a play date. I'm not organizing your time. I'm not signing up for an activity. Get out of the house and go find something to do on the street, where they just have open exploration to like explore, be in their backyard, make a spaceship out of a cardboard box, because now we actually have a plastic spaceship that looks like a spaceship. And now you can be in the spaceship, where like, I remember my parents they delivered a refrigerator, and I distinctly remember this. I must've been like in first grade, and we had a refrigerator box. I mean, a refrigerator box when you're a first grader is huge. It's like a house, and we cut doors into it, and we colored it. And I remember living, and from like, life was so good playing in that refrigerator box. Where now, you'd have a full-on plastic playhouse, and you don't need to use that creative part of your mind that you're in a refrigerator box.
Yeah, no, completely. I have to say, I mean, myself, my partner talk about this quite a lot, because he's actually got two girls, and they're like 19 and 21 now. But I do think that we were really fortunate to grow up in the time that we did. I'm glad that I didn't have a mobile phone when I was younger. I'm glad that there wasn't the internet. Thank heavens there wasn't, right? Like when I was younger. I'm glad that I got to play outside. There was this one thing where there was some London riots, excuse me. And I remember like London riots, and like kids in like, I don't know, like areas of London were basically just looting shops. And this was probably about, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And a news reporter actually interviewed a gentleman, and the gentleman basically said, well, these kids don't have anything. And he sort of said, all they have is their mountain bike and the park. And I remember being in the gym and on the treadmill, and I remember stopping my treadmill and just going, oh my God, all I had was my mountain bike and my park and the park. And I had the best childhood. Do you know what I mean? Like we played, like we interacted. And I think like, you built friendships, and you learned how to have relationships with people. You weren't disconnected by screens and stuff like that. You were actually out playing with your friends, forming connections. You were getting your heart broken. People were saying horrible things to you. You got picked on by the kid down the road. There was the class bully. That was just part of growing up when we were younger. And, some of it wasn't particularly nice, but I think it does build up a resilience. And I think we had an experience that I think is now going to be classed as quite unique, in the sense that we could, form relationships like actually face to face, actually with the person. We could use our imagination, because all we did have was our mountain bike and the park, or the fridge box that you just kept you entertained for like, months and months and months. There was nothing like a massive cardboard box. As soon as you said to me, my parents had a fridge arrive, I knew exactly what you were going to say. It's like, it was just like, that's going to be an awesome box.
So, it's so interesting, because I think this is a double-edged sword. And my daughter and I talk about this because, she's 18 and she has grown up with social media and stuff. Yeah. And she made an interesting comment. She said, oh, my friends and I all realize how bad social media is. We've all said we will never let our kids have social media. Right. And I said, well, if you realize that, then why do you guys all continue to use it? And in the same breath, she was like, well, we're not giving up our social media. We're just never going to let our kids use it. And I'm very curious to see if down the road, particularly with their generation, if it will become illegal for kids under 18 to have access to social media. I would vote for that in a second. I don't think there's any reason for a child under 18 to have social media, particularly when the research that's done on adults shows how it increases depression and anxiety and all of that. And I think, you touched on the fact that we had a generation where there was a bully, and there was, kids got picked on. I think what's glaringly different and very concerning is that, let's say, a popular kid in school had a party on Friday, and you got invited and my friends got invited, but I didn't get invited. I might be upset at school on Friday, but I would go home Friday night and I wouldn't know anything about the party. Now, Monday, I might go back to school and I might have to hear about the party, and that might be a little like hurt, but I wasn't on Friday night, where now I could be home Friday night on my phone, literally watching in real time everybody making their snaps and their posts and their videos and being reminded again that I'm being left out of this experience. If there
Mm.
was a school bully and the person bullied me all week, I could go home at the end of the day and get away from the bully and be in my house. Where now the bully can follow me home and bully me through social media, through
Yeah.
cyberbullying, and stalk me and share photos. I mean, I had an issue. I remember I posted a photo one time of my daughter. She's an emotional support dog. We have this little dog called Eleanor. And when she was going through her second life-threatening illness, her therapist had recommended getting her a dog to take her to the hospital. And so we got her this dog, and I had posted a very cute photo of her. I think she was in second grade, of her sleeping in dog with the little dog in the bed with her sleeping next to her. And some mom, I have no idea what possessed her to do this. She was on Facebook with me. She saw the photo and she shared it with her daughter. And her daughter went into school the next day, spent all day making fun of her and all the other kids making fun of her that she slept with her dog. Now, in retrospect, the little girl was jealous that she wanted a dog. The mom wasn't getting her a dog. My daughter had gotten a dog. And, sleeping with your dog is not something that's like to make fun of, right? But she did. And my daughter came home hysterical. How dare I post this picture of her? And all the kids were making fun of her that she was sleeping with a dog and blah, 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 blah. And it was my first insight into like the understanding why people should we even allow should parents even be allowed to create a digital footprint of their child without their consent?
Yeah.
My daughter and I talk about that she's like, we had a lot of interviews when she was going through cancer, and there's a lot of pictures of articles and stuff of her over the internet. And, was that, I put her picture on the internet and she's a digital footprint of a cancer survivor. And I'm like, I can understand her valid points. So we got to a place where it was anything that I posted, even when I did my book, she had to pre-approve all the photos. And so, and I posted a picture of her the other day, and I don't remember if it was just her or us. And she literally wrote under the picture, "This is a hate crime." Or every now and then she'll like send me a screenshot. She'll be like, "Remove this immediately."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, you look so cute." She's like, "Hate crime." So
I said, yeah, I suppose that because I said, we've already ascertained, I don't have kids. So these are kind of things that what my partner has, like girls, and, he has like 2 girls, and, they're obviously on social media, they're on TikTok and all that kind of, I'm like, I've literally just got a TikTok account. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. And, yeah. And for me, it's really hard to understand the impact that social media can have on some like a kid. Do you know what I mean? But like when you're explaining it, in that kind of sense, because I have no concept of getting cyberbullied, only from my friends, and that's out of love. It's just
very serious.
Yeah, it's just such a big thing. And when you like, you were telling stories like that, it actually makes me kind of go, makes you realize and opens your eyes to actually, when we were at school, like the bullying stayed at school, we didn't come home with us, but it does now. And that must be horrific.
I mean, they've had issues with, they've had issues with kids hurting themselves because they've been so cyber bullied. And so I guess I just look at it and I go, I don't see any value in a child being on social media. We use social media for our business. I love Facebook. It's been a way for me to connect, having moved to be able to stay connected with people that my friends around the country, around the world. I obviously use social media for business. So I see value in social media. I also see that I have to sometimes be really careful. I have unfollowed, so not unfriended, but like where you can unfollow that their posts don't come up. People, not because they were negative, but because they were too good. They were too successful. They were too happy. They had too good of a marriage. And I realized every time I would go in and I would see these, I would feel bad about myself. And there were some people that every time I saw how happy and good in life was for them, I would feel bad about myself. And I just had to be like, I'm really happy for them. I'm clearly not evolved or emotionally stable enough to be as happy as I should be for them. So for my own well-being, I'm just going to make sure I don't see unless I go to their page to look for them or to connect with them. I just don't need to see how happy you are all the time because I'm not and that was just a conscious decision, right? Of being aware of like which pages, or like with my business, which pages would make me feel competitive, but in a bad way, in a, look what she's getting and I'm not getting. And those kinds of things, I started going, this is not healthy. So if I feel that way as an adult, I can't even imagine what a kid feels like. And I see this with my daughter, and the pressure of how they look, and to look like adults in a ways that a friend of mine sent me a picture of her husband's daughter's prom picture, like of them getting for prom, with a snapshot of our prom picture. I mean, these girls look like they are from Sex in the City, in these tiny little dresses, and the bodies everywhere, and like the makeup and the hair and the false lashes. And then she sends our prom picture from 1995, and we've got like puffy sleeves and like full length, you can't see any skin, and crazy hair. And we're like, and yes, it's style, but it's also, we didn't look like mini adults.
No,
we look like awkward kids.
Oh my gosh. Like I show, like, I love showing the pictures of me when I was a teenager, because I've always been a bit of a tomboy. Like, so like I've never been the best girly girl. I have no idea how to put makeup on, honestly. Like, it's just ridiculous. But like when I go out, I'm like, oh, do you know what I mean? Because I tried smoky eyes for the first time, like just before I was going out once, and that was just the worst idea like ever. I don't know what I was thinking. But like my head was essentially a triangle, right? Because like, like when you get your hair permed, right?
I used to get a perm, yep.
Yeah, and then but my hair used to grow out, and my hair, as you can see, is dead straight, right? It's absolutely dead straight. I curl my hair.
I like it long. I was going to say that before when we started. I know if you guys aren't watching, your hair has grown quite a bit. I like the length. It looks good.
Oh, thank you very much. But yeah, my hair is dead straight. So when the curls grew out, like this bit was just flat here, and all of a sudden my head went. And I was like, my head was like a triangle, and people are like, no. And I'm like, yeah. And that's on social media, because that's too good not to post.
Well, I have to know, I naturally have curly hair. I have straightened my hair today, and I have very curly hair, and it can get frizzy, and I live in an area where it's humid, and so it's a little wild. And I am just waiting and praying that the 80s come back. I mean, my hair is so ready for the 80s. And I just want everything about the 80s to come back. I want the wigwam socks to come back. I want leg warmers to come back. I want the big geometric jewelry to come back. I want neon to come back. So I am ready for the 80s. I feel like, the styles come circulate, but nothing has circulated like the 80s. Like where I used to take my jeans and fold them and roll them with the big puffy socks. Like I am ready for that. I want everything. I even had a t-shirt. I don't know why this is not cool or in style anymore. I had a t-shirt that changed colors. It was like a mood t-shirt. Like
I know those t-shirts.
Yes, I want that to come back. So I am ready for the 80s. Somebody needs to start a movement that's cooler than me and bring back some 80s fashion and curl my bangs up. Like my sister-in-law says, what is that saying? The higher the hair, the closer to God. Like I'm all ready for that. So
but I tell you, if they do come back, I'll make you a deal. I'll perm my hair from here down. And I'll recreate the late 80s, early 90s. It's a beautiful time. Monobrow, acne.
I love it. Well, I do want to kind of circle back, because I know we've been talking for a while, and this whole time, for those of you who are watching, you can see AB has that she's a corporate freedom business coach, and we have not talked anything all about to do that. But the way that we connected and we started this was, I think, either we spoke at a summit together, or I applied to speak at yours. I honestly don't remember, because it's been a few years.
I think, was it Clubhouse? Did we meet on Clubhouse?
Oh, maybe.
And then I asked, because then I asked you to speak on one of my summits. I'm thinking it was it. It was about 4 years ago there, I think, ish.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I think I've done two of your
You've
summits.
Done two of my summits, yeah.
Okay, so maybe that was how. Maybe it was initially through Clubhouse. Okay. And I've seen over the last couple of years, you've kind of made a transition, because you were really focused on the nutrition and all of that. And I remember last time we spoke, and you had shared, and I this resonated a lot with me, that as you were helping your clients with food and nutrition and eating healthy, there was this real correlation to their stress in their jobs and their
Yeah.
lives where it was causing this unhealth. And so you've really shifted now into a bigger focus in that area. And I feel like so many people listening would relate to this because stress, I personally think stress is probably the number one cause of disease. I think if you think of what the word disease is, it's dis-ease. And when you're in stress, you're in constant, disease. And that stress, one of the things I've talked about, and I'm surprised it's not on a bigger global scale, is that we just had the entire world go through trauma, actual real trauma during the pandemic, right? And on all different levels. We had people who lost, massive amounts of family members. We had people who were, isolated for a very long time. We had people who were separated from family members for a very long time. And just fear. Fear is just a horrific, traumatic experience. And all of us at some point had some level of fear by the pandemic. And so we go through this, year or two of severe stress. And then it's over and it's like, oh, just go back to your regular life. Just go back to living like your regular life. And there was normally when people have trauma, they go to therapy and they get help afterwards. And I feel like it's the entire world needs therapy now, right? Because of this stress. And so I think it'll be interesting to me to see long-term how this affects people's health, not the pandemic itself, but the stress from the last couple of years. And how that will affect people's, immune systems and longevity and things like that. And so what you do in helping people with their stress levels and helping people reclaim their health, I think is really a very needed thing right now. So can you just talk a little bit about what you do? Like, who's the ideal person? If somebody is listening to this, who would be the ideal person to connect with you? And I know you have a gift, the Business Kickstart Blueprint that you're going to give our listeners, but can you just talk a little bit about what it is that you do and who would benefit from connecting with you?
So it's basically people that are in a corporate job that they hate. So one of the really cool things about being a kid these days is that you've got so many opportunities. Okay. And so you get born into this world and there's, all of these opportunities. Perhaps when we were younger, I know the career options that you had as a female were administrator, hairdresser, or air stewardess, right? They were that was it, right? But now you've got all of this stuff. But what comes with that kind of social conditioning as a Gen Xer, early boomer, late millennial kind of situation is that you're conditioned to think that you need to fit this particular box. And what was happening is I was helping people with their health, a lot of gut health. I've been a nutritionist for, I think, about 17, 18 years. And I've, built the Dietista from the ground up. I was fixing people, corporate people that were really, really stressed out. And I was sending them straight back to the root cause, which was a job that they're completely unhappy in, that's absolutely killing them. So kind of organically, what started happening when I was speaking to people was I was actually helping them to think about what it is that they actually want to do. And for our generation, sometimes that's a little alien and a little weird, because what do you mean what we want to do? It's like what we should do is what we do, right? So it's about kind of changing that mentality. And I just started organically working with my nutrition clients to kind of help them see out of the rut and give them the ideas and the momentum to perhaps start to pursue something that they wanted to do to earn financial freedom. So they weren't governed by, long working hours, ridiculous deadlines, people leaving and them taking their jobs on. And so, so then Corporate Freedom Business Coach was born because I just organically transitioned into that. So yeah, people that hate their jobs really and just want to do something that they love instead.
So are most people coming to you because they already know what they want to do instead? They just don't know how to make the transition, or are they just in a place where they're like, I just know that this isn't what I want to do, but I have no idea what I do want to do?
I think it's a bit of everything. So sometimes people have already got a business and they want to kind of scale it and grow it. I built the Dietista from the ground up. I sold out programs and all of that kind of stuff and had one-to-one clients. And so some people have already got a business and want to know how they can grow their audience, like through things like summits that we've worked with on together, and perhaps like create an online program, take some of it online. Some people are starting from the beginning and they know that they want something else and they might not know what it is. Some of them are starting from the beginning and have quite a good idea what they want to do and they just don't know how. So those are the kind of people that I like to work with. They're my favorites.
All right. So if you fall into that category or that just hit you hard and you're like, that's who I am, you will have all of Amy's info in the show notes. You'll be able to find everything. If you're watching it here on YouTube, it'll be underneath YouTube. But what is the gift that you have for them? Because we'll have a link for that as well. So what is the blueprint?
Yeah, so the blueprint it's a discovery blueprint for your business. So if you've got a business and you want to take it to the next level, or you want to start a business but you don't know where to start, this is where you begin. So you've got like a help sheet that will take you through some important questions that you need to ask, some things that you get to put in place so that you can make a start on your business. And what you also get is a consultation with me as well. So I can walk you through that blueprint if you so wish, so we can start actually putting stuff into action. And you get an action plan to take away with you as well, so that you can go off and start to build the business that you love and leave the job that you hate.
Oh, I like that. I like an action plan.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people, need. They need to kind of like a step-by-step strategy.
Yeah.
What do I do next? So guys, that'll be in there for you if you want to connect with Amy, if you want to grab that, or if you know somebody that maybe you're like, hey, I kind of know this person. They're a little unhappy at their job. Maybe it's a coworker, that I think maybe needs to connect with Amy. Then if you want to share that link or share that with them. And I love talking with you. I mean, our conversation obviously had lots of stereotypes, lots of, what we perceive around the world. And I just want to end that. We know that this is just like everything. And this is, again, where people get so offended. Like everything, we all wear different glasses. We see the world very uniquely. Amy and I are both women, but we're going to see the world differently in two different color lenses because of our DNA, because how we're uniquely made, the DNA that our parents passed on to us, but also our own experiences of what we've experienced. And so I think when we can acknowledge that even if we're both looking in the same direction, if you kind of imagine that people had all different kinds of colored sunglasses on. So we're all looking at the same thing, but maybe mine are yellow and yours are yellow, but they're slightly different tinges of yellow. And that color is made by our experiences and our DNA. It helps us understand why we're not all the same and why it's not a right or a wrong. It's just different experiences. And so when we talk about what we think about people in the UK, or we think about people, I'm very vocal about what I think about people in New Jersey, right? It's because of those lenses. And so if you have a different lens, it's okay. You don't have to agree with us. You don't need to comment and tell us, your thing or be that. Like, it's just interesting to me that people feel so riled up sometimes when people disagree with them, and starting to see that it's just because we see things through a different lens, and respecting that with everybody. I try to remember that when people I'm like, why are they like that? It's because they see things from a different lens.
Yeah. And fundamentally, humans are beautiful.
Yeah. And I do. I think that, ultimately, God doesn't love one person more, right? So, so hopefully you could laugh with us, have fun with us. We'd love to hear your stereotypes. Like, do you have ideas? If you're from the UK, what do you think about Americans? I'd find that fascinating. I would love to hear what you think of when you think of Americans. And, if you're here in America, we want to know like your favorite place to be and visit and travel. And I love that technology gets for us to connect literally thousands and thousands of miles away to have these kind of conversations. And I think that women are meant to be in community and connect with other people. And so I would encourage you guys, if you're listening, go expand your community. I never would have met Amy if it was through Clubhouse. I hope that's maybe was the case.
Thank you.
But,
Yeah.
it was through a virtual, right? And so find those people, connect with those people, build those great relationships. Right before we hopped on, I was crying to her about I'm changing software and technology, and I'm not a tech person, and I have a wonderful VA, but it's still I get very overwhelmed. And she was like, if you have a problem, call me. I can help you through the tech stuff. And guys, those are the kind of people you want in your life. You want people who are going to be in your corner, who are going to cheer for you, who are going to support you, and who, when you decide, hey, I'm going to try this podcast thing, I have no idea what I'm doing, they're like, I'll come on and talk with you. Those are the people you want in your corner. So we hope you had fun with us today. If you did, please subscribe, because I promise I'll be back with another interesting person and a very irrelevant conversation. If you want to leave a review, we'd love to hear your review, particularly if it's positive. And hopefully you'll subscribe, come back, and make sure you connect with Amy. If you can give her some digital love, find her on social, give her a heart, share something you loved about what you heard. And Amy, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you next time on Tara's Voice. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.